What's up, Bulls Nation? It's the Bloody Horns Podcast. I'm your host, Justin, here to give you the daily content. Let's talk about Arturas Karnisovas and Marc Eversley and their lack of activity. So I saw yesterday, it was going around on Twitter, that of all the franchises in the NBA, the Chicago Bulls have made the least amount of trades over the last 3 years. And you see things like that, and it makes you look at the front office and say, are you guys asleep? What the fuck is going on here? This isn't how business is done in the NBA. Even teams like the Milwaukee Bucks, the Golden State Warriors, the Lakers, the Celtics, teams that have been in the finals pretty recently, they've all made big trades and big shakeups in that same amount of time that the Chicago Bulls have just been resting on their laurels. And Arturas Karnisovas and Marc Eversley, they came into this franchise and the Bulls were down bad. You know, Pax, there was a period of time where there were pretty competent GMs. It got so bad at the end that Pax went to ownership and said, you got to get me out of here. I don't know how to do my job anymore. That's fucking insane when you think about it like that. So they came in, and from my perspective, they didn't really evaluate what they had. They just assumed that everything was bad. So their goal was to turn that roster over as quickly as possible. And they did it pretty damn quick too. They took over at the 2021 season, you know, that off season before that year. And before the start of the 21-22 season, we pretty much had a new team. You know, they brought in Lonzo Ball, DeMar DeRozan, Nikola Vucevic, Alex Caruso, Derrick Jones Jr., Javonte Green. Like, they turned the roster over. They gave us a pretty competent team, but ever since then, they've been resting on their laurels. You take it back to that first trade deadline with that Lonzo team. Lonzo was already injured. We could have used a trade. Lonzo was injured. Patrick Williams was injured. There were contracts the Bulls would have been able to move. The Derrick Jones Jr. contract was movable. That Portland pick back then, you know, Dame was lighting it up with the Blazers still, so that Portland pick still had some value. There were moves they could have made to try to bolster that backcourt with Lonzo being out. And keep in mind, Kobe was still working his way back from injury. He was playing, but physically he wasn't really playing with full confidence yet. So you take it back to that first trade deadline, there were moves they could have made. They could have used that Derrick Jones Jr. contract. They could have used that pick. They could have either upgraded the 4 spot. The Jeremy Grant thing was rumored out there for a while. I understand why they didn't do that because of the Patrick Williams of it all. But at the very least, they could have made an upgrade to that backcourt. They didn't do that. We got beat 4-1 in that playoff series. You go into that offseason now. Now you're counting on a Lonzo Ball return, which, you know, I'm not gonna hold it too far over their heads, just because we've never seen a meniscus injury like Lonzo had or has take a dude out for this long and potentially be a career ender. Usually it's a pretty clean injury, a pretty clean recovery. Lonzo's just had terrible luck. But you go into that offseason, and it still should have been clear that moves needed to be made, that we couldn't run back Derrick Jones Jr., Javonte Green, that same supporting cast. If you wanted to run another year of the mid-3 back, that makes sense. But to go in and the only moves you make are adding Goran Dragic, who was 37 years old. He was coming off a season before with the Nets where he could barely get on the court. He was pretty washed at that point. Andre Drummond, he's been great for us. He's been nice, but still, those are two very fringe pieces that you're adding, and you haven't addressed the Lonzo Ball piece or the 4 piece with Patrick Williams. You're just, you know, putting more confidence in Patrick Williams. Then you get to the trade deadline last year. The team isn't working. I believe at the trade deadline last year, we might have been out of that playoff spot. And your big answer was to sit on your hands, do nothing, not make any trades, even though at this point, the cracks were showing in the DeMar, the LaVine, and the Vooch pairing. And there was substantial interest in Zach LaVine at the trade deadline last year. You heard the report last week come out that the Mavericks were hot on him last year. Makes you wonder if they're offering that same package they eventually traded for Kyrie Irving for Zach LaVine. So to sit on your ass and do nothing last year during that trade deadline, that speaks volumes too. That's not a good look. When your big moves in season have been bringing in Tristan Thompson in the 21-22 season and bringing in Patrick Beverley last season from the buyout market, that's just not a good business model for the Chicago Bulls. So this trade deadline, this is they're only 3 years in. So it's kind of weird to say it's a make or break trade deadline for them. But for this front office, it's a make or break trade deadline for Marc Eversley and Arturas Karnisovas. You know, they rest on their laurels a lot. You know, congrats. 2-3 off seasons ago, you guys did a major overhaul. You brought pieces in. It's not working. There was a period of time where it worked. The fact is, the period of time where this team worked is a lot smaller than the period of time that this team has not worked. So you got to do something. I don't know what that move is, but it can't be a small move. A big move is definitely needed for this franchise. So these guys, you know, this is where you earn your paycheck. This is where you earn your bread. Show that you're a competent front office. Show that you're worthy of this position. Because I said on the live the other day with Mo Banks and local Bulls fans that, you know, former Denver guys, they get a lot of credit for building teams, but the fact is the Jokic draft pick's one of the luckiest draft picks of all time. They don't hit that draft pick, none of this happens. So show that you're worthy to run front office, because in my opinion, you haven't really showed that so far. So sound off in the comments, guys. Let me know what you want to see from this front office. If you guys aren't subscribing, please hit that subscribe button. If you're not following on social media, the handle's the same on all of them. It's at Horns Bloody. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all of it, same handle, at Horns Bloody. Throw me a follow. Let's talk hoops. Let's go Bulls. Let's hope for some change around here.